The sun hung low over the rolling fields of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, its golden rays brushing gently against the backs of horses and old wooden barns. The town was quiet that morning, except for a strange buzz coming from the county fairgrounds. It wasn't the usual kind of buzz from carnival rides or fried dough vendors, it was darker, charged with something that didn't belong. In the middle of the open field stood a crude wooden stage, erected hastily with no banners, no lights, no celebration. Just a single sign scribbled on a board, Amish clearance. Among the small crowd that gathered, there were murmurs of disbelief and discomfort. Most were curious. Some were just cruel. And then there were those like him, the silent ones, standing far in the back, arms crossed, hat pulled low. Her name was Miriam Yoder. She stood barefoot on that stage, her hands trembling as they clutched the hem of her simple cotton dress. Her bonnet was missing. Her long chestnut hair fell over her shoulders, and her pale blue eyes, usually hidden behind modesty and downcast lashes, now darted around like a deer cornered in the woods. She wasn't supposed to be there. Just a week ago, Miriam had been feeding her family's chickens and hanging laundry in the soft breeze. Her life was routine, built on prayer, silence, and service. Until the night her father died in a buggy accident and her uncle, an embittered man exiled from the community, showed up at their door, claiming guardianship over her and her 2 younger brothers. Miriam didn't know the laws. But her uncle did. He had the documents. And a dark plan. Pure-blooded Amish, the auctioneer barked, waving his hand like she was livestock. 17 years old. No education, no outside influence. Obedient and hard-working. Miriam stared at the dusty ground beneath her feet, her ears burning with shame. Bidding began. The numbers were small at first. A man in a leather jacket bid $50 as a joke. Another laughed and offered $100. Someone else shouted, she'd make a good maid, and the crowd roared with cruel amusement. Miriam's breath became shallow. Her heart pounded. No one was going to stop this. That's when he stepped forward. The cowboy. He had been watching quietly, leaning against the wooden fence. He hadn't spoken a word. His boots were worn, his shirt dusty, and a wide-brimmed hat shaded his eyes. No one knew his name. But when he stepped into the circle of bidders, the air shifted. "I'll take her," he said softly. The laughter stopped. Everyone turned. 500, he added. The auctioneer blinked. "Do I hear 550? Silence. "Sold." The cowboy didn't smile. He didn't look proud. He simply walked up to the stage, offered Miriam his hand, and said, "You're safe now." She hesitated. Then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. He led her away from the stage, through the crowd, and to his truck. It wasn't until they were miles down the road that he spoke again. "My name's Caleb. I live on the edge of Wyoming. You can stay as long as you want. No one will bother you there." Miriam stared at the dashboard, her fingers still trembling. "Why did you help me?" Caleb didn't answer immediately. His voice, when it came, was quiet and rough. "My sister. She was in a place like that once. No one helped her. I swore I'd never stay silent again. The ranch was nothing like Lancaster. Wide, open land stretched to the horizon. Horses ran free. The wind whispered instead of pressing down. Miriam found it both terrifying and freeing. The first days were hard. She didn't speak much. Caleb didn't push her. He gave her a room, taught her how to use the stove, showed her how to feed the horses. He said little, but his kindness was in everything he did, from fixing the broken window in her room to leaving fresh bread on the kitchen table. As weeks turned into months, Miriam began to change. Her laughter, once buried beneath years of silence and obedience, found its way to the surface. She painted again, something she had secretly loved as a child. Caleb noticed, but never commented. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Miriam sat on the porch watching the sky turn crimson. Caleb joined her, sipping coffee. "Why don't you talk about your sister?" she asked gently. He stared into the distance. She ran from an abusive marriage. Came to a shelter. But no one wanted a runaway. "I was too late. I'm sorry. I see her in you. Strong. Brave. Even if you don't know it yet." Her eyes welled with tears. "I'm not strong. I was auctioned like an animal. You survived. That's strength." One morning, 6 months after arriving, a black car pulled into the ranch driveway. A man in a suit stepped out and handed Caleb a letter. It was from a lawyer. Miriam's uncle had been arrested in a fraud case. The state was looking into his illegal guardianship claims. Miriam was free to decide her own future. The weight that fell off her shoulders was invisible but enormous. That night, she knocked on Caleb's door. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said. He nodded slowly. "Where will you go?" She looked down. "I thought about going back to Lancaster. But, there's nothing for me there anymore. My brothers are with a good family now. I don't know who I am out there. But I've started finding pieces of me here." He stood quietly. "Caleb," she whispered, "I'm scared." "So am I," he replied. She stepped closer. "But maybe we can figure it out together." It was the first time she saw him smile. Years passed. The girl who once stood trembling on a stage now walked with confidence. Miriam and Caleb turned the ranch into a sanctuary for women escaping abuse. They never called it a shelter. They called it Haven Hill. Every woman who came was greeted by Miriam herself, often with a warm hug and a whisper, "You're safe now." She told them the truth. That healing takes time, that silence doesn't mean weakness, and that kindness, even from strangers, can change a life. One day, as she was painting a mural on the barn wall, a little girl from the sanctuary tugged on her sleeve. "Miss Miriam, were you really in an auction?" Miriam paused. "Yes, I was." "Were you scared?" She knelt beside the child. "I was. But someone stood up for me. And because of that, I get to stand up for you." The little girl hugged her tightly. The wind still rolled over the Wyoming hills. Horses still ran free. And every evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned to gold, Caleb and Miriam sat on the porch, hand in hand, watching the land they saved, and the lives they built, grow brighter with every passing day. Because sometimes, it only takes one silent cowboy to change the course of someone's life. And one brave girl to believe in hope again.